The Bills defeat the Colts in walk-off fashion and now prepare to take on the Broncos in the second of 3 preseason games. There's a ton to discuss, so stick around for our thoughts and join the conversation. This is the Friday Night Forecast.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming to rep the East. Buffalo bat with a vengeance, we resurrected the team, man, we dangerous. Watch for these horns, they lacerate and cut. We don't play no game while we play this game, no, I play in us. You know what it's about, you made me wanna shout. They said to take it now, we took another route. Deuces to the drought, play through all the doubters, finger pointing and laughing. The ones that was talking that trash are the same ones circling wagons, we ain't having it. Dominate divisions ever since we put the L in it. Knocks the competition out the stadium like hammer fist. Stephon Diggs a grave and he pays respects to the cornerbacks that can't cover quickness, then he catches it. Yeah. In 1995 to 2020, break the streak. Kept the faith in every season for the team, cause I believe. Taught me no matter how many times you're down, do not accept defeat. Feel like number 17. You got me feeling like I'm Josh Allen. Yeah. What? You got me feeling like I'm Josh. Okay. You got me feeling like I'm Josh Allen. Yeah. Josh. Yeah. Got me feeling like I'm who? Josh. Yeah. Josh Allen. Yeah. Succeed the most in the freezing cold. Break a couple tables in a parking lot with sleet and snow. Yeah. Put the work in with Sean McDermott, a worthy coach. Y'all can get the hands like a Wilson ball when it's Beasley thrown. Yeah. Got so many yards to the point we owning property. Yeah. I remember haters talking foolish with that gossiping, but they don't want it with Buffalo. Cause when the winter storm hits, they'll be stuck with nowhere to go. Let's play Micah hide and seek. We'll find a week up on the field. Say hike and we'll unleash the likes of Trey White and Evans. All kinds of D. Back in the driver's seat, a single Terry. He's sprinting scary to carry the ball through the plane. Embarrass these adversaries, prepare to be victimized. We gave New England pats up on their back. Told New York to jet, they left the scene and packed their bags. Went fishing for some dolphins, left them beats up on the sand. AFC East champs. You got me feeling like I'm Josh Allen. Yeah. What? You got me feeling like I'm Josh. Okay. You got me feeling like I'm Josh Allen. Yeah. Josh. Got me feeling like I'm who? Josh. Yeah. Josh Allen.
Happy Friday, Bills Mafia, and welcome to the Friday Night Forecast on the Cold Front Report. I am your host, Travis Blakesley. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Please go ahead and show us some love with a like, a share, and or subscribe so that you can stay up to date with all things Bills. Remember, you can listen to this show and any of the other shows in podcast form by searching for the Cold Front Report on your favorite audio app. Tonight, I am joined by a special guest, Mr. JTM, Jeremy Turner Montgomery. How you doing, sir?
Hey, what's going on, man? How are you, Trav?
Good. It's been a while.
It has. It's been way too long, but I'm glad to join you tonight. Made it happen. We the timing is right for us to come back together, and it's great. Football's back, and it's almost, we're like 19 games at home opener? 19 days at home opener?
19 days. Sounds about right. Speaking of football, we'll start the show by getting into what happened while we were away. The Buffalo Bills come back and walk-off fashion defeat Indianapolis, all while resting most of their starters. Veteran Matt Barkley led the Bills to 3 consecutive fourth-quarter scoring drives and was capped off by a 46-yard Tyler Bass field goal to end it. That said, this game displayed countless plays made by numerous young players. In other news, the Bills have announced a couple cuts. Offensive linemen Jordan Simmons and Derek Kerster, we'll skip that last name, but Derek K., cornerback Elijah Griffin, Tim Harris, tight end Jalen Weidemeyer, and linebacker Markel Lee. Finally, Coach Sean McDermott announced that the Bills starters would receive, quote, a healthy amount of snaps against the Broncos. That remains to be seen. With all that said, Jeremy, discuss the week that was. Your overall thoughts on the game, any comments, questions, or concerns going into the next one?
Yeah, I thought that they came out flat. I wanted a better showing for Case Keenum at the beginning. they're a little bit flat. But I think that is to be expected for their first preseason game. A lot of times now, actually, as we know, the new way of training in the offseason is hardly no training, no two-a-days, not a whole lot of work. So I think that's to be expected. I don't put too much on winning or losing preseason games. Me personally, I know other people view that differently. I just look at certain players. But as far as some of the young guys that we drafted, obviously a Balen Spector, a Terrell Bernard, good showings. Kaiir Elam was a solid showing. So the guys are trying to make this roster, but the understanding that this is a championship caliber team. And when you're called upon, you're not called upon a situation where you have too much wiggle room to really learn on the fly. It's just not a lot of room for error. So they showed up, and I thought it was good.
Yeah, I mean, it may not have started off great outside of the defensive performance. I thought that was something you could take and kind of run with it with the defensive line specifically. You got those videos of Settle circling around. That's putting a perennial Pro Bowler, All Pro on skates was great to see. I didn't really get to watch too much of the offensive line. They were rotating a ton, so I didn't really know who was in. But later in the game, it was good to see some guys step up. And, like you said, it doesn't mean anything. It's always nice to win. You don't want to watch your team lose. But I really like the point that you brought up where a lot of people, maybe outside of the punter, a lot of people are talking about players that are probably won't even be active, let alone make an impact. I thought Christian Benford's showing was nice. He's definitely going to make the numbers game, and we'll get into that later. He's going to make it tough because that's a guy that there's not a chance I see him sliding through waivers and making it to the practice squad. He just showed too much. There's been a lot of reporting, and when you're, like you said, a championship caliber team, other teams are going to take automatic flyers. Gone are the days of, it's the Bills, but you got to show me on tape. They're going to hear names and they're going to see the Bills, and I think that they're going to assume the best. And when you got former coaches running other organizations and leading other teams, they're going to be the first ones to poach.
Yeah, no, I agree. The days of the assistant running to the GM and trying to convince him of why he should sign this player are coming from Buffalo is, like you said, it's far gone. As you see with Weidemeyer, he signed with the Patriots immediately today. So, and once again, that's a division rival. And I agree with your point. As Sean McDermott's coaching tree gets out here and Brandon Beane's management tree gets out here, because that's one thing too. We also have a management tree around the league now. That progresses, it's going to be harder to stash players. And like you said, they're going to pick off your practice squad players in the offseason. They're going to pick off your second stringers and third stringers, and then they're going to pick off your assistants, and then you're going to pick off your assistant managers and things like that. So it's a good spot to be in. It's horrible. It sucks at times, but it is a very good spot to be in.
We've definitely found ourselves with greater problems to have. At least the silver linings. It's coming from success. So, outside of last game, let's kind of put that to rest. And we're at the end of the week. We got a game coming tomorrow. What do you think about the starters playing? You got two camps. You got the ones who just want to see your guys play. They need the reps. Obviously, people automatically assume, since they've done it before, that they don't need to practice. Anyone who's a tradesman, anyone's got a job, you gotta have some time on task. And then there's the group all the way on the other side where they think if one of these guys straps up on a game setting, even though they've been practicing for a month, they're going to get sneezed on and they're going to get hurt. How do you feel the Bills are handling this situation where our opponent and many other teams across the league are not playing any of their starters?
I always think it's a bad idea. I think, we've obviously trimmed this down to 3 playoff games. And if you go back to 3 preseason games. When it used to be 4 preseason games, your starters would probably play a series in the first game. They'd probably play 2 series in the second game. And then the third game, I believe, it used to be like maybe a half at best, probably, your starters. In the fourth game, they wouldn't play
at the most on that third game. They're coming out of halftime to take one, get that that
Right.
vibe of going in, coming out, playing a series, but that's it.
Right, exactly. So it's a situation like they have to play. You have to get the reps. We do have a couple new offensive linemen. You do have a new tight end in O.J. Howard. You have Isaiah McKenzie taking a third spot. You have Jamison Crowder possibly taking the fourth spot. You have Shakir, who's a rookie, in the fifth spot. You have to play these guys. And yet, to me, I equate it to almost driving a car. All right, you have to go to the grocery store. You have to go do things, run errands. Yes, there's always a chance that you can get into a fender bender, but are you never going to drive? No, you just have to do it. So, yeah, I think tomorrow's a bright game for them to play. I would expect the starters to probably play 2 quarters, I would say, probably at best. Maybe 2 quarters at best. Maybe not even, maybe only a quarter. In the third game, you're not playing at all.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point with the new faces, and something we didn't touch on. We got a new guy calling plays.
Yeah.
We got a special teams coordinator, who's doing it for the first time as well. So do you want to iron it out on the national stage on a Thursday night to open up the season? Probably not. And the timing of it, I think, is very good because, like you said, it's only the second game. You got almost 3 weeks before the home opener. Those soft tissue injuries, those bumps, those bruises, you can heal up by the time the first game comes around. So I think the third game is out of question, just logistically, because somebody pulls a hamstring, they might not make it. So, right. I'm in the exact same boat. Although I going into the day before, I guess Denver announced that they're not going to play anybody, or at least I was unaware until today. I thought they would come out and play at least a half, but with the other team not getting starting reps, maybe it's a little less, maybe not. But, I mean, I'm sure there's certain guys that are come out. Maybe Case Keenum gets a couple series with the starting offensive line, just to put those fans at ease for, the pitchforks and torches coming after Mr. Keenum. But yeah, I mean, I'm not overly concerned. These are football players, and that's what they do. They play a physical sport, and injuries do happen 100% of the time. So moving on and from this segment to transition into another one, there's going to be a lot of talk about, obviously, cuts. There's going to be a lot of talk about bubble players, players who are contesting starting positions. Although there's not many, there's still a few that, with the likes of, Trey White, who may not suit up week 1, guys who are coming back from injury. There's still a couple players that may see some runtime come week 1. So I wanted to do a little exercise here. I picked 3 positional groups, and based upon what we kept last year, why don't we go ahead and see what I know you have a 53-man out there. You're formulating all that. Just give a little insight. We'll start with wide receiver. Last year, I believe they started the season with 6 wide receivers. Obviously, we know the top 4 in the draft pick, but why don't you run down who you think is going to make this 53?
So I think you're going to stay with 6. I think you're going to obviously Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, Isaiah McKenzie is your top 3. Those are the easy ones. I think that you still run with Jamison Crowder. I think you obviously run with Khalil Shakur. And I think your 6 is going to be Tavon Austin if he has a strong showing yesterday. But tomorrow. Tavon is one of the guys who has to have a strong showing tomorrow. He needs to have a positive 1 or 2 positive punt return yards, and he'll be fine, or he'll be on this team. So I'm still going to go with 6 for now.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. Austin is a guy who's off a lot of people's radars, obviously injury and bouncing around in the league. But he's a guy that I wouldn't be surprised. I think for me, I think it's an either-or situation with the veterans, meaning him or Crowder. I think in the long run they're going to end with Crowder. But I just don't know, outside of the punt returning and kick returning, do they need the Jay Kumaro? He's not a primary gunner. That's what, a lot of people talk special teams, but he's not, he's not Saran Neil. they're two different special teams guys, and I think the role Kumaro plays is a little overhyped. I mean, they say he's a glue guy, he's a good guy, but at the end of the day, the choir boys don't always win the championship. So for me, I'm going to stick with Stephon Diggs, Gabriel Davis, and Isaiah McKenzie, obviously. Khalil Shakir is not going anywhere. I will keep Jamison Crowder, but I'm going to throw in a little fan favorite and go with Isaiah Hodgins. Now, I'm going to base it on the equity that he's given us from last game running into tomorrow's game. But I think it's more of a hope because he's a guy I think he was talked about on a higher level than Gabriel Davis when he was drafted by a lot of guys. I think a lot of people expected it to be them to be drafted in opposite order. He caught everything in college. I mean, that's one thing that can always be said. He's a big guy, but he doesn't really play big. So I'm hoping for him to take that next step. He's not like those quick twitch guys who are going to get open and give you a big window to throw the ball. He's going to be somebody who's going to lead the contested catch. And I know Bills fans love the Duke Williams of the world, guys who can get up there. Clearly, that's not the Bills. The Kelvin Benjamin experiment did not go well. Allen does seem to do better with those quick guys, the guys who can run routes and get to the spot where when they need to be. But I think it's just a testament to the things we've heard out of camp, and I'm kind of pulling for Isaiah Hodgins. Moving on to cornerback. I know a lot of times we only rolled with 4, but I think we entered the year with 5 cornerbacks. Let's assume we're going to roll with 5.
Right.
Who is going to be your top 5?
So on my list, obviously, it gets a little tricky, right? Because we're talking about the numbers game. It gets a little tricky because obviously I'm under the belief that Tre'Davious White is not going to suit up for this team before week 3.
I agree.
So with that, with knowing that and having him start on either an active injury list or just a pup list, however you want to list it, I'm going to go with Kyrie Elam, Dane Jackson, Teron Johnson. That's your top 3. And then I'm going to turn around. Saran Neil is your number 4 because they technically list him as a corner now. And I'm actually going to go with Benford. But in my projection without Trey White healthy, I'm going with 6. And I'm going to bring Cam Lewis as well because you're going to need another veteran.
The Cam Lewis one he's basically the reason why I came up with this exercise was because you talk about primary backup slot. Or a guy who can play all the both positions. He's been one. He's like a cockroach. You can't get rid of him, man. He's been around. He's made plays when he's called upon, and it's good to see these younger guys, these lower draft picks, to be able to actually play in the league, and they've played in some tough spots. I believe, didn't he come in during the Kansas City game when he broke his wrist, right? It's like
yeah. He's been in some tough spots, right?
He's done well. Obviously, Benford is a guy who you really if you're going to cut him, you're never going to see him again. Seems like a diamond in the rough. The DNA, the makeup, however you want to call it, is there. You listen to Leslie Frazier talk about him, and it's like it's his firstborn. So he's a guy that you got to do what, like you said, if you have to maybe go a little lighter on the defensive line as opposed to like what we did last year, it's something that you got to do because he's a guy that's going to be in the pipeline, and you can never have enough corners. I mean, we've been clamoring for talented corners. He's big, he's taller. He's got everything you're looking for. The Saran Neil thing, though, so I'm assuming if Cam Lewis doesn't make this team, Saran Neil is going to be your primary backup slot corner. I mean, otherwise we really don't have a guy on the roster, right?
No, you don't. You don't have another one.
So
not for slot.
No, and I mean, it's arguably the most important position in a Sean McDermott defense. So when I saw Saran Neil sit, obviously he's here for the special teams, but he's been kind of like formed into certain roles per game. You throw him on a Travis Kelce. You do a lot of different things with him. So in my thinking, I'm going the same way with you, as I don't think that Trey White's ready to play. I think they go with 5, and then when the season hits, you never know who's going to get injured. Maybe you don't need to bump it to 6, but for the sake of argument, we'll say Trey White does not count against the roster. You got your Taron Johnson, you got your Dane Jackson, obviously Kyrie Elam, Saran Neil, and Benford. Now, the interesting wild card would be a Nick McLeod. What position are they going to stick him at? And do you think he has an outside shot of making the roster?
Actually, I do. I believe they're going to leave him at safety. But I think Nick McLeod is in the running to be the gunner opposite of Saran Neil. I think he's in a direct running for Tywan Jones, because I don't feel that they want to carry 4 running backs on this roster, with Tywan being the 4th. The last couple of years, It's always been 3, with the 3rd one being either Tywan Jones or the couple of years before that, Sonoris Perry. So I think Nick McLeod you're probably an extra safety coming on board. So I do think he has a role, and I think that may be it. I saw across from us, Saran Neil, another gunner.
That's very interesting, because he's getting that guy. They're getting up there in age, and like you said, to have a team that doesn't run the ball very often, and you're allocating 4 running backs, and I don't even know if that's not even including Reggie Gilliam, is it?
No.
So it's like you got a bunch of guys, and their snaps are limited. So I like Tywan Jones is great, and I'm sure at some point he's going to hit a wall. Will it be this year? We'll see. We'll wait and see. Lastly, we'll go with the offensive line. This one's tough because we haven't seen many of the guys play. We got an idea on a lot of guys, but some of the newer guys we haven't seen, the Saffold. So why don't you break down the offensive line?
So obviously you got your starting 5. I think that's already been determined. I don't think we have to think about that too much.
Now, quick question: Is David Quessenberry the starter?
You know what? For week 1, I am starting Quessenberry, because I think Spencer Brown is still working his way back from the back injury. So I'm thinking you're going Dawkins at left tackle. Obviously, you're going Safford at left guard, Morse at center, Ryan Bates at right guard, Quessenberry at right tackle. But then that's where it gets tricky, because, like I said, as I was saying before, even earlier in the week, if you carry 9 offensive linemen on the game day roster, you can only allocate for 46 roster spots for game day. If you carry 8, then you get 48 spots. So I'm assuming the Bills are going to be carrying 8 offensive linemen the majority of the year. So with that being said, you got to think about the 3 backups. Obviously, I'm going to throw Spencer Brown on there. He's your primary. Obviously, if Quessenberry doesn't start, then Quessenberry's your backup there. Then I'm going to go with Greg Mans. Mm-hmm. I think that's your backup center, and in my projection, I'm trading Cody Ford.
We've seen worse players get traded here,
right.
And he's a 2nd-round pick. I mean, we've taken flyers. Who was that guy from the Chargers that was on the team last year?
Forrest Lamp.
Yeah, same exact. People are going to take flyers on him. And a team like the Giants, where they're down to like their 4th center or something, they're cutting guys just to bring on no names, just so they have enough offensive linemen. I think you're really on to something.
And Tommy Doyle is my 8th, because that's your backup. He's been your backup left tackle. So if I had to go, and then honestly, I think you're going to keep 9 linemen. I just think you're going to keep eight active on game day. My 9th would probably be what's our other guy inside there?
Ike Botker?
No.
But we're assuming he's not good to go until later in the year, right?
I think he's going to be I'm going to check here. I believe he's going to be inactive for, honestly, the majority of the year, and then when he does be active, I think they're just going to move on from him.
Depending on injury.
Yes, depending on injury.
So, I mean, a couple guys that you may have left out. You got, obviously, our favorite, Bobby Hart, who's making some noise in the guard position. And, he played 11 snaps. That says something when a guy like Luke Tenuta, I know he's a rookie, but he played every damn one of them. He played 100% of the snaps. So the fact that he only got 11 reps, I don't know. Bobby Hart might be sticking, he's the... And that guard position,
He's stuck around this many years in the league, so it shouldn't be surprising. Bobby Hart is like a 10-year vet that's about now? He's close.
he's at least been on that. He's been cut and signed that many times. I can assure you that. Yeah, I mean our prediction is about the same, but like let's see who you got. You got your starting five. You got Greg Mance. I'm with you there because I think finally we actually have a center first backup. I know he can play guard, but I think he'll be your primary. So that's 6. You got a Spencer Brown or David Quessenberry. That's 7. Tommy Doyle. That's 8. Now, if they do decide to keep 9, I think it is Bobby Hart, and especially these next 2 games will prove it, whether or not he's willing to stick around. What are you expecting to see out of this offensive line, or at least what are you looking forward to most? We got a Cromer back. We saw what he did with Richie Incognito when he had his tenure here. Are you looking more run game, pass game? What are you looking at?
I'm looking for more balance. I think that's what myself and most Bills fans and analysts have been looking for the last couple of years is more balance. Try to get a little bit away from this Brian Dable air raid system that we kind of had, because we know that at any given time in Buffalo, and the show in New England, that New England Monday night game last year, that you may not be able to pass the ball. And we're going to automatically assume that this team's going to be the number 1 seed in AFC most likely, right? So that's assuming you're going to have 2 home playoff games. Any given day, that weather in December or January could be just about anything.
Well, look at last year. We had like two nice day game. Not even, maybe even one. The home opener and every other game was shit. The weather.
Right. Buffalo's weather is so bipolar. Mm-hmm. So we have to be equipped to be able to do everything. And there's no reason for us not to be able to run the football. We have the perfect trio of backs. You have a kind of do a little bit of everything in Devin Singletary. You have a power back, and I'm going to move to Pyle and score touchdowns on Zach Moss back. And now you have this. If you give me the wrong matchup or the wrong hole, it's a touchdown in James Cook back. So there's no reason for us to not have a running game. It would be completely asinine to not have one. So I'm looking for this offensive line to create holes and move people. They've done a hell of a job protecting Josh, but now we need to add that other aspect, and that's why we brought a guy like Roger Saffold in here.
That brings me to my I guess assessment for tomorrow will be watching Roger Saffold and seeing if we can truly have that guard presence where you're collapsing defensive lines. Whether or not I'm curious to see the pin and pulls, all this kind of stuff. Are you going to get guys on the outside? All that's always interesting. But I really want to focus in on the run game. And I'm assuming we're going to see it may not dictate how we run our offense going forward in the regular season, but I think we'll see a lot of run heavy, especially going against a bunch of twos. Straight up split veers, just simple plays, and just one-on-one beating your other man. And I'm really looking forward to it. And I think that we may have the right group of people. Bates came on real strong last year, so hopefully he can pick up where he left off. Obviously, Dion Dawkins is Dion Dawkins, and getting him healthy at the beginning of the year, because a lot of people forget, he caught COVID, caught it again. He had a rough start to the year. So having him on top of his game. And then Quessenberry, he played every down for the Titans last year. So whether or not we see him or Spencer Brown week 1, he's no slouch either. Is he all world? No, but he's a guy who can certainly step in there and play. And if there is a position where you're looking to fill that hole, it's going to be that right tackle. If there is a weakness to the line, having a guy like him who has experience is definitely where I would be looking for. So it'll be exciting to see what this offensive line can do. Before we get out of here, let's just move on to our last segment and kind of go into what player per se. It doesn't have to be starter, but just who's someone maybe made a little bit of noise last week, or someone who you didn't see. Who are you looking to watch for tomorrow?
For me, honestly, I think the main player I'm watching tomorrow is Tavon Austin. It's like it's something that's so overlooked, but it's something so important. When we had Andre Roberts, we saw him change whole games around with just flipping the field on one return, third quarter, fourth quarter.
Absolutely.
Changed the whole dynamic of a football game. And we can go back years of talking about Tyvon Austin and watching West Virginia and coming in the league and being pretty much a human highlight reel. He has a chance to solidify himself a spot on this team. And honestly, if he's the guy we think he could be, that changes everything. Because now you're putting a top 5 defense on the field with a crazy fan base at these home games. And now when that punter's punting from his own end zone, you have a guy back there that is going to catch the ball and not fumble or muff it. But you also have a guy who can take this ball from the 50 and put Josh and Bass right in field goal range from the first snap. That's something that we've been missing in the last couple of years. So tomorrow, my main guy I'm looking for is Tavon Austin.
And he's really a boomer bust because he's only carrying a cap hit of just under $1 million. So he's somebody you could cut if you need to. But like you said, Andre Roberts, how much? And I think he deserved the money we paid him. But we spent a lot of money for him to be special there. And if he shows out, Tavon Austin, a guy who can also really help you on offense too. It's not just, he's not just going to touch the ball and kick off or punt. If you can get a guy under where his base salary is, I think it's 1.1 million, that would be a steal. And honestly, I'm glad you brought him up because like you said, he's an afterthought. He's a guy where people don't mention him, and I think that's not deserving of what he could bring to the team, and at least what we need. Like you said, we don't have that returner right now. It's up in the air. Shakir. He caught the ball, but he didn't look great out there. And, he's a rookie, and it's, a lot more goes into it than just that. But that being said, it's not solidified. So that's a great choice. For me, I'm going to go with O.J. Howard.
Okay. Yeah.
Because obviously we're not going to see Dawson Knox, I assume. And this is going to be an opportunity for him to play with the ones. And I think he's one of the players who everybody who covers the Bills, everyone who's a fan of the Bills, have been really down on. And I think a lot of people kind of have to pump the brakes a little bit and realize what a tight end number 2 actually does. And their primary goal is not necessarily to catch the ball. It's blocking. And that's one thing that's never been knocked on O.J. Howard. He's always been a formidable blocker. So if you can get a little bit of play out of him and decent blocking, and in the regular season, I'm totally fine with that. I think his cap numbers, he's on the team regardless. But I mean, this is a guy who, he couldn't this at least this summer he couldn't play dead in a Western. For Bills fans, he really did not move the needle that much, and I'm just looking forward to see if he's able to kind of rectify that because, it's not super important, but injuries happen. You got to have a guy that can make plays. Give me a score prediction. I know it doesn't matter, but give me a score prediction.
Hey, it doesn't. It may not matter to me. It may not matter to you, but I can tell you what. There was a whole lot of fans that sat on their seats last week for a preseason game. So, I'm gonna go. I think the Bills continue their streak, the 10 game winning streak now for preseason games. I'm gonna say Buffalo 31, Denver 10. If they're not playing any starters, 10.
Yeah, I'm with 33-17.
Okay.
Who knows? Let's see. Let's just make sure let's just, instead of worry about wins and losses, let's just worry about who gets out of the game healthy. Right. Obviously, that's the number one thing overall. Now, the last thing I want to just talk about is just a hot take. Anything out of the ordinary that we see tomorrow. One hot take.
Okay, I got a good one. It's probably a little different, right? Josh Allen rushes for at least one run of more than 15 yards. and it's going to have everybody on their seats, the edge of their seats if he runs his ball.
I got a caveat. Will he go out of bounds or slide or neither?
You know what? Knowing Josh, you would think that he tried to run somebody over, stiff arm to say get himself going, but I think he goes out of bounds on it.
Yeah, good. I'd like to see him slide because you never know what happens out of bounds. What do you step on and trip over? Yeah, it's gonna happen. It's definitely gonna happen. All right, for a hot take, I'm gonna say that Matt Araiza has a punt with a hang time over 4.5 seconds.
Ooh.
A lot has been talked about the hang time and the long kicks and how that's kind of like a returner's wet dream. But I really think you get him in a good situation somewhere around the 50, and I think we see one of those. And then that's it. I mean, I think it's over as it is, the kicking competition, but I think that's the final. We've seen all the things we know he can do well, and then the holding was number one for me, and then just being able to manage that leg was a close second. But, like we said, he's just a guy that can he picks up a golf club, he probably drives it 320 yards. He just seems like that kind of guy. And to have him and Bass, they kind of remind me of the same, just the opposite, the two different positions. Yep. But they're just they're great.
One of the things is the kickers and the punters of the past are no more. When we're growing up, the kickers had the one bar, and they weren't athletic. They couldn't tackle. They couldn't do anything besides kick. That's no more. These guys are athletes. They've played other positions in high school. They possibly could have played other positions in college. Yeah, you're right. They can go out. They can golf. If you're going to play a basketball game, they can play that. So that's no more. These guys are actually athletes now.
Yeah, and Ghana, what was it? The replacement? No, was it the replacements? The kicker was smoking cigarettes before making the kicks. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Any closing comments before we get out of here?
No, like I said, man, I just want to see everybody got the game healthy tomorrow. Obviously, I do want this part of the season sucks. This is probably the hardest part of the season because you see some of these kids fighting so hard and playing so well and giving their all, and it's just unfortunate. This is a really good football team now, and there's not enough room for everybody on the roster or the practice squad. So I just want to see everybody get out healthy, and I hope that a lot of these kids, like players like Isaiah Hodges, like Matt Hack, who may not actually end up making this roster, should have a good showing. So there's a real good chance that they're on another roster come week 1 of the season.
Yeah, a lot of people forget that, they are playing a game, but this is their job. A lot riding on it, So when you see a guy who's not going to make the team make a big play in the fourth quarter, it means something to him, and also it may mean something to him getting on another roster. So, hopefully everyone gets healthy, number one, and even if they don't make the roster, let's put on a good show so that, they can continue the dream, man. But other than that, this was the Friday Night Forecast. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. Enjoy the game and go Bills.
Go Bills.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming to rep the East. Buffalo bad with a vengeance, we resurrected the team, man, we dangerous. Watch for these horns, they lacerate and cut. We don't play no game while we play this game, no, I playing us. You know what it's about, you made me wanna shout. They said to take it now, we took another route. Deuces to the drought, play through all the doubters, finger pointing and laughing. The ones that was talking that trash are the same ones circling wagons, we ain't having it. Dominate divisions ever since we put the L in it. Knocks the competition out the stadium like hammer fist. Stephon Diggs a grave and he pays respects to the cornerbacks that can't cover quickness, then he catches it. In 1995 to 2020, break the streak. Kept the faith in every season for the team, cause I believe. Taught me no matter how many times you're down, do not accept defeat. Feel like number 17.